So I would like to say thank you to you. Well, that's my t-shirt, in South Africa. Hashtag men are trash, and my country goes in flames when I do that. Because I do it with the same double D breast they gave me. So when they stare with their sexuality, at least they learn something while they stare. I would like to say thank you to a woman that I met in South Africa about 6 months ago. She came to intern at Embrace Dignity, where I was taken in to be under their exit program to develop a skill, which is what became me writing a book. Her name is Morven. When she met me in South Africa 6 months ago, she came back, an old lady minding her own business, just touring, and then she ran into Embrace Dignity, found some passion and love to me as a survivor, and decided to raise funds to bring me to this. And that's the amazing connection. You don't need to be anything, but that when you get inspired, wanting to do a difference, you just decide to raise funds, raise money for one survivor to come into a global platform and just voice it. And for us as survivors, those are the small things that encourages us to survive. So I'd like to just let Morven stand up and say thank you so much for joining me. We call women like herself gogo at our villages. The granny that's always chasing the grandkids to go to school in the morning. If you don't want to go to school, because you always get gogo's like that. Like, you need to go. And she was like that. And it's called the tough love for us survivors. Because one thing with love and trust, we don't trust easy. But when we get people that don't give up on us and tell us that I'm going to do what I need to do. So I just want to appreciate her and honor her and say thank you for bringing me to London and meet an amazing woman. My name is Grizelda Grootboom. I grew up on the streets of the District 6 in Cape Town. I was one of the street kids due to the fact I had a happy home, but the apartheid time in South Africa, we were removed from our homes because, people came to buy the land and make new developments. And that's how I became a street kid. In my becoming a street kid, of course, I got used to the streets, the language. When I tried to reach out to my mom, her having her own life in the township, which is where Kailicha, that's where I'm based even today, she had her own home. So she never told the guy she got married to she had a kid. So when I rocked up at the door, it was a shame, it was stigma, and she was not happy about that, which is a normal African thing when you go to Africa. Religiously outcast kids are not welcome into the happy home. So you get outcast, really, by your mother. And from there, it was the first encounter that I had to be sexually gang raped in a village that I couldn't speak Xhosa, anything. I could only speak Afrikaans because it became a culture shock. I had to live in a township where there's sand and buckets. And that was the first sexual exploitation that took place in me. And when that happened, my mom cursed me that I brought, curse to the family, kicked me out, and I went back on the streets. On the streets, we lived mostly on glue and tinners to keep our bodies warm. And we did this from the age of 8 till 18. I lived in a shelter called Onsblik Shelter, which became very juvenile because the street kids are in the central of the town itself. So every time you steal something at the shop, the police will pick you up and drop you at that shelter. And sometimes when you want to, be out of the jail, because they would lock you up with men too. Because, you're a street kid, you don't listen, and you're caught in for a criminal act of stealing bread or milk. And for you not to stay in jail with men, sometimes you'd give the policemen some pleasures of blowjobs so he can let you out earlier. And that will save your life, and that was a survival. At the age of 18, our shelter that we stayed in, when you're 18, a state shelter doesn't keep you. You're over age, it's time to go. You need to find your way. You're developed, you're not developed. Due to that pressure from the shelter, I got used to the gangster room selling drugs. And through that, I became very close with a girl that I met that kept to buy drugs all the time from us. And I mean very, very close, because gangsterism is a territory thing. So when a stranger from outside comes, you sort of need to constantly have a conversation with the gang leaders of saying, she's a trustworthy person, and that's when the loyalty came in. Through that, we became close, and she is the one that introduced me to sex trafficking, because I remember asking her, is it possible to leave Cape Town and come to Joburg and stay with her there? And of course, with no problem, she did not mind. She recruited me to Joburg, got to Joburg, very excited. And I was shown into a house that I thought it was hers as my best friend. And I just, recall her saying she's going to get me food, and I took a nap. First thing that woke me up was a kick in the stomach. Men came in undressing me, duct tape around my eyes, and injections behind my knees to the quicker to the vein for my lower body, meaning to hit my nervous system to go numb on the lower body. As the drug kicked in, of course, really trying to figure out if the house is getting robbed or something is happening, or I'm in the wrong house and she's coming back. I'm sure she's coming back. In the time of the drug kicking into the nervous system and the blood cells, not even time wasted, men started coming in. This happened at least for for my senses, about 12 to 2 weeks. I started picking out time through the way men smell. In the morning, it would be, he's fresh, he's from home or something, or in the afternoon, and that went on. I got exchanged out of the house in the middle of the night. They caught a younger girl. They picked trafficked her and bringing her in the middle of the night and kicked me out. And of course, as a street kid, I had no other choice. My first thing had to do was my animal instinct had to kick in now, because survival needs to kick in. I already knew that the system didn't have any protection for girls like myself. Joined the rest of the girls on Johannesburg, Hillbrow, and became a prostitute in the hands of pimps and brothel owners. The survival was basically not to get beaten up by your pimp every day when you didn't make money. So you make sure that you get clients all the time. I did this until the age of 26. At 26 years, I was working in Port Elizabeth. At that time, our country was hosting quite a lot of world crickets, and we were one of the countries hosting those things. So of course, their sponsors and everything were going through the brothels like rain. It was raining up in there. And at that time, it was a busy place for the madam. And that's when I became pregnant with Summer. I called her Summer because through first trimester, second trimester, we were still told to work. In 6 months, Summer had to go because the madam was happy, because Summer gives pressure to the vagina when the customers, enjoy it. And in-house abortion took place. 3 hours later, I was told to take sponges to hold the blood of the abortion and get back to work. I think at that particular time was the only time where emotional feeling and life and womanhood kicked in. Because most of my time from the age of 18, through the sex slavery trade, we were numb. We were told, this is who you are, and you are numbed by drugs, you are numbed by emotions and violence. And I was numbed by the mistrust that my friend already gave me in every soul blood cell in me. In that moment is when I said, no, I'm not going to. And resisting, of course, has caused me to be grabbed by my hair, driven and beaten all the way back to Johannesburg. I woke up in the hospital about a month later, and that was the beginning of exit. Exit became that I have to survive as a 27-year-old black woman that has no documents and nothing, and half of the world or the country pimps know me very well. So of course they were waiting outside every rehab house and every shelter they knew that helped girls. I made it through my age of 27 of rehab, very suicidal here. The second year I served in a shelter they call Home of Hope. And that shelter had babies that was, the women on the street became pregnant and they're still alive and they make it, and this shelter was taking those babies in. And for me to stay there, I had to take care of these kids. And it became so shocking to me that these babies are falling asleep in my anger. And I don't know, in what I have learned in the 18 years of who I am. And I just remember humanity kicking in, rocking them to sleep, and promising, that was my first lie ever, that I'll make sure they never get into the sex slavery trade. And I knew, Grizelda, don't make the kids believe this. These are babies. They're so spiritual, and some of them would smile. Made it through the 28th, and of course my perms were already waiting, because I could hear now and then, your uncle what came to look for you, and your pimp can identify you with the stamp he gave you, the birthmark he knows you, and the names that you have given to him about your families, and that's how they find us all the time. Of course, I went back to the pimps. This time around, I asked them if it's possible if I can pack and cook the drugs for them, which I did from the age of 28 until 32, where I got the opportunity to drop drugs back in Cape Town. I did this job, of course. I got it through the church, which is most of the organized crime in sex trafficking and drug trafficking that happens in Africa. I survived to go through the airport, and I got back to Cape Town. No time wasted. I knew the pimps could not trace me down to that level. And I went back to my mom's place in Kailicha and gave her the money, and that's where I hide out. Funny enough, it was the safest place, in a shack. When that happened, I knew the relationship is bad. We don't know anything. She has her own depression. And I had to start dealing with the first stages of HIV and my body coming out boils, and worrying about the fact that how will I explain to my local nurse neighbor that I need assistance with the stigma against a black woman having HIV. But that's when the journey started, because I sat in the clinic at least for 2 weeks stealing the toilet paper and shampoo because nobody came to ask me for help and if I needed help. And I just knew that at some point, a lot of production and awareness was happening in the country at that time. And one of them came to the same clinic. I sat all day, and they did a presentation for a movie they need to make, and they're going to use it for an awareness tool around Africa against trafficking. And as a kid, street kid, we were taught any project makes you a product, and that's your survival. So be part of the project, and who knows, you may be a product of it. I acted in a movie, it's called Portia, and after making the movie, knowing they launched it in a conference, and that was the first platform that I received to speak and tell my story. Out of that, I met amazing Western Cape and South African organizations, where I met Embrace Dignity, that gave me the opportunity to write the book. I wanted to write the book Exit because I wanted to title it Exit. When you go, and when we were in every brothel, they would line us up in front of the door looking at the sign Exit. Where clients walk in and out, pick you, you go to the back, he comes back, you stand back in the line, and all you stare at is the sign. And when I finally exited to have my book with my name on it, is where I felt the dignity of coming back. So far, the book has been received very well in my country. It came right on time before the report of the decriminalization could be announced, which I'm very proud of as a Black South African survivor leader. So now in our country, there is a very, very, very heavy, confusion of, oh, we didn't know they're survivors. And there's one screaming quite loud, #man or trash. Her name is Grizelda Grootboom, and she has caused us to rethink the law. And that is the aggressive, as a survivor, we need to bring. I don't stand on platforms because it's easy. Wherever I go, I have to fight for my privacy because I'm scared I might wake up and the bed is wet. Wherever I go, I've constantly had to describe why is my breast so big, but not knowing that every day our pimps injected it for it to be like this. So when we strip, it would really feel firm. And as a survivor, the support of feminists and a movement is very important. What I would love to have is my life back in a healthy environment. And I always question, how can this be a job when I'm a survivor, even today, having to fight just alone in my country for health care because I've been in the sex slave trade. So thank you very much for your struggle. The songs I sing is songs of struggle to women. The songs I sing is songs that I try to comfort myself, that I can wake up the next morning and fight another day. Trying to feel that you don't need to wear napkins because you're going to wet yourself, or trying to not misbehave with the bipolar emotions of anger that you have of 18 years everyday men in you. Every day having to meet somebody new for me is a whole new world. And that's a challenge every day. My sister before you told you, it's the most hardest thing. Because you stand in the room and you wonder, are they not stripping my clothes apart? Just recently I had the opportunity to speak at the UN at the Global High-Level Human Trafficking Action Plan on the 27th of September. And it felt so brutal because the whole room was just full of men. And I probably felt embarrassed, and the first thing I did was froze and cry. And the men was probably already looking at my vulnerability to the weakness they would like to say women are. But that is the struggle. And that is the pain that we need to describe and show that we can survive. I always ask, every woman knows the pain of womanhood. Could be in PMS, you know how it feels, like giving birth. If you don't give birth, you should know how PMS is. It's the same shit, it's together. So if you can't get babies, baby girl, you're still dropping an egg somewhere. And that's pain. So there's no way we don't know each other's pain. We have the same pain as women. And it's not about a color or religious thing or agenda, but it's one voice of saying, women are saying, the violence that you're putting on my body is enough. Thank you very much. May you be blessed.